After Robert lost his memory, he forgot I was his kept canary and wired me a breakup fee, telling me to get out. I touched my pregnant belly and ran off, over the moon. Money in hand, excellent genes for the baby, and no need to serve anyone. Life could not have been sweeter. But the sweetness didn't last long. During my prenatal checkups, I kept running into Robert Matthew. Once, twice, 3 times, the more we met, the murkier his gaze on me became. I was afraid he'd remember the past and wondered if I should just run abroad. I looked up and saw him draw a deep breath and stride toward me. After all those chance encounters, it was the first time he spoke to me. A man who won't accompany his wife to her checkups isn't worth keeping. But a child shouldn't grow up without a father's presence. I mean, I fell in love with you at first sight. May I be so bold as to ask, can I be your child's father? I was Robert Matthew's canary. Pretty, obedient, well-behaved, and a perfect match for him after dark. So the man who never cared for women did the most jaw-dropping thing. He kept me by his side for 3 years. Just when everyone started guessing he'd fallen for me, he had a car accident, and forgot me alone. Damn Robert. Don't tell me he faked amnesia to avoid paying me a breakup fee. I was fuming at the thought. When Assistant Wilson, over the phone, relayed Robert's arrangements for me post-amnesia. He chose his words with great delicacy. Miss Clark, after the accident, President Matthew finds his former playboy habit of keeping a canary utterly baffling. He doesn't believe he had any feelings for you and does not wish to see you again, so I'm sorry, but you must move out of the villa at Blue Bay within the next 2 days. The Blue Bay villa was where Robert had settled me. It was also the place where we'd shared a bed for 3 years. After living there so long, I'd more or less come to think of it as home. I'd decorated the interior with all the pink lace I adored, and planted swathes of sunflowers in the garden. So when I heard I had to move out, I felt a bit down. But it was his property, his call. It was his money, too. I nodded weakly, already braced to leave with nothing. Then Assistant Wilson changed tack and added, President Matthew is not without feeling. Hearing you've been with him for 3 years, he believes, if nothing else, you have worked hard for it. So he has transferred you a breakup fee and is gifting you a house inside the 4th ring. In return, he asks that you no longer entangle yourself with him. As his words landed, a text popped up, a 7-figure deposit into my bank account. My melancholy vanished in a blink. In my head, fireworks went bio, bursting with joy. Unable to suppress my grin, I rushed to assure Assistant Wilson, don't worry. I'll move out within 2 days, no, today, and I'll never show up in your President Matthew sight again. This time I'd truly laughed my way to a windfall. Money in hand, plus a baby in my belly with top-tier genes, and no need to serve a man who could never be sated at night. I'd made out like a bandit. Yes, I was pregnant. I like children. So when I first found out, I probed Robert, subtly and not so subtly. Do you like kids? He denied it without a thought. No. Noisy and annoying. He gave me a once-over and frowned, you want a baby? His expression was grave, serious. As if I said yes in the next second, he'd throw me out on the spot. How would I dare tell him I was pregnant? I shook my head at once, firmly denying it, of course not. I actually can't stand kids. Besides, with our kind of relationship, we can't have one. No name, no status. I thought my answer was impeccable, perfectly expressing Robert's homesickness for freedom. But Robert must have eaten some poisonous mushroom, he snapped in an instant. What exactly is our kind of relationship? And you don't want to have a child with me? Since he couldn't comprehend the homesickness I'd so carefully expressed, I could only stand behind him and vengefully made a 6 with my fingers. Yes, that dog of a man once again tossed me onto the bed without a word. Thankfully, the baby's tough. Even with his father piling on all night like a pile driver, the little one held on. That only strengthened my resolve to keep the child. So when Robert lost his memory and told me to get lost, of course I took the money and ran off, thrilled. That very day, I had Assistant Wilson handle the property transfer. That very night, I moved into the new place. And happily settled into a baby-nurturing life. By day I took walks, cooked, and accepted commissions for illustrations. By night I read, listened to music, and double-tapped handsome men on my screen. When I was Robert's canary, life was nothing like this. The madman had a rule, every like on a handsome guy's video meant doing it once. He was gorgeous, and good in bed, so I was happy enough. But too many times, and my waist really suffered. So I had to sneak those handsome guy videos. Liking them was absolutely forbidden. Now I'd finally amount to something, I could fall in love with 108 handsome men a day, and my little hearts would glow red, one after another. And the next video would always feature the handsomest of them all. Materially comfortable, spiritually delighted, life was bliss. Bliss flies by fast, and in a blink it was time for another prenatal checkup. The thought of meeting my baby, even just an embryo, made bubbles of joy fizz in my chest. So I accidentally ignored the tiny prickle of unease that flashed through me. I never imagined I'd see Robert at a hospital on the fourth ring. In the hospital lobby, I spotted him at once amid the crowds. A white bandage wrapped his head, and he wore a blue and white striped patient's gown. Maybe because of the injury, his sleek black hair had been shaved to a buzz cut. It didn't dent his looks in the least. If anything, it sharpened his features, finer, keener, impossible to miss. When his gaze swept my way, I ducked my head in a fluster, feeling the heat of his stare on my crown. Inside, I groaned. He's a prince of the Beijing circle, with power and clout. Even if he didn't choose a private hospital, he'd be in a top-tier, AAA public one. So why on earth was he in some ordinary public hospital on the fourth ring? While I was muttering inwardly, the gaze above me shifted away. I risked a cautious glance up. Robert's back had already disappeared into the moving crowd. I patted my chest and let out a long breath. It's fine, it's definitely fine. He's forgotten me, he's lost his memories. So even if he saw me, it's fine. To him, I'm just a stranger now. Comforting myself thus, I headed toward obstetrics. In 2025, there aren't many expectant mothers coming in for checkups. Taking a number, waiting to be called, it all went quickly and smoothly. The checkup itself went smoothly, too. When I got the baby's ultrasound and the doctor told me he was healthy, I was both nervous and thrilled. His arrival let me feel the bond of blood again after losing my family. He is the miracle I brought into this world, even though he isn't born yet. How could I not love him, not keep him? Smiling down at the ultrasound, I pondered how to preserve it. It's the baby's very first photo in this world. First, I'd have it laminated, then pick a pretty frame, and... a person coming toward me was in too much of a rush. I didn't have time to step aside and we collided. Thrown off balance, I would have fallen, but a strong arm slipped around my waist, righted me, and let go in a flash. I steadied myself and stared at the ultrasound that had fallen to the floor. Still shaken, I touched my belly. The man who'd bumped me tossed back a half-hearted apology and hurried on. I cursed him, uselessly, in my heart, bent down, and picked up the ultrasound. I blew the dust off and lifted my head to thank my rescuer. He was looking down at the ultrasound in my hand. When my eyes landed on his familiar face, I was struck dumb. Those sharp brows, keen eyes, that high-bridged nose, the man who had steadied me and saved my baby was Robert? My mouth fell open, and the "thank you" caught in my throat and wouldn't come out. Robert glanced me over, then looked again at the ultrasound. That naturally icy face of his turned from a 1,000-year frost into a 10,000-year snow peak. My heart skittered. What if he remembered everything and made me abort? Or took the child and left me with nothing, never to see my baby again? The more I imagined, the more terrified I became. Heart pounding, I blurted, "The child isn't yours." The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted it. Robert had lost his memory. Why was I babbling? I was basically confessing without coercion. I forced a smile and hastily patched it up. Just kidding. Thanks, handsome. My husband wasn't here just now, good thing you caught me, or I'd have no way to explain it to him. This child is the old Jones family's long-awaited heir. The more I bluffed, the slicker my tongue became. And the darker Robert's face turned. In the end, unable to bear me chanting about the old Jones family's lineage like a nagging monk, he didn't say a word, just turned coldly and walked away. Good grief, how terrifying. I'd definitely have to switch hospitals next time. Patting my chest, I watched his retreating back and made up my mind. After that day, I spent a few jittery days at home. Aside from one call from Assistant Wilson, asking whether I still wanted the big pink teddy bear from the bedroom, I got no more news of Robert. I let out a long sigh of relief and slowly returned to my leisurely baby-raising life. Soon enough, the next checkup day arrived. This time, I chose the top of the top AAA hospital in the capital. Ambling my way over, I thought, there's no way Robert transferred from that fourth-ring hospital to this one, right? As it turned out, he absolutely could. Hospital lobby. Catching sight of Robert not far away, I went completely dumb. Robert is someone with a keen sense for people. In an instant, he looked my way, brows faintly knitting. He was probably wondering why I had suddenly come to this hospital. After all, you don't usually switch hospitals for prenatal checkups. What a damned coincidence. Had I known Robert was here, I wouldn't have come. His gaze lingered on me too long. I couldn't ignore it, so I lifted a paw and greeted him. Hey, handsome, what a coincidence. You're here for a prenatal check? No, to have your bandage changed. Robert, post-amnesia, was rather rude. He shot me a cold glance and turned away as if I were a stranger. Back when I was his canary, if we ran into each other outside, he'd at least come over to ruffle my hair or kiss my cheek. Now? I pulled a face at his retreating back and zipped straight to obstetrics. This checkup went smoothly, too, and I got the baby's second photo in life. A mother's eyes see only beauty. To admire my baby's cuteness properly, I found a bench along the corridor and sat down. He was still just a little bean, but the more I looked, the more I loved him. I couldn't bear to look away. Until someone went thud, collapsing right in front of me like he was staging a scam. Startled, I sprang to my feet. "Sir, are you okay?" I squatted and, with effort, rolled the man onto his back so he wouldn't suffocate. And was ambushed, unprepared, by Robert's devastatingly handsome face. I was truly speechless. How could I run into him everywhere? But seeing the bruise blooming on his temple, I couldn't bring myself to abandon him and bolt. I drew a deep breath, looked around and called for help, then joined the nurses to rush him to the ER. Sneaking out of the ER afterward, I swore to myself I'd switch hospitals again next time. Surely that would prevent another encounter. If I ran into him yet again, no way I'd be that unlucky. Mulling it over, I headed toward the parking lot. But before I even made it out the outpatient doors, I ran into someone else I really shouldn't have. In the lobby, Assistant Wilson and I stared at each other. Remembering my promise, I held up 2 fingers and swore, "I swear I'm not trying to pester your President Matthew. I'm here because I caught a cold, not to stake him out, absolutely not." Assistant Wilson was silent for a long moment, then said softly, "President Matthew's visit today was a sudden change of plans. I know you're not that kind of person." He paused, wearing a complicated expression, then added, "Still, thank you for saving President Matthew just now." I exhaled in relief and waved it off. "You're welcome. This is a hospital. If not me, someone else would have helped." I'm really not good at small talk, so after a quick goodbye I turned to slip away. Assistant Wilson suddenly stopped me from behind, hesitant. "Miss Clark, perhaps you should see President Matthew. His disbelief in his feelings for you is likely because he hasn't seen you yet. If he saw you, he might remember your past together." That won't be necessary. We've already run into each other several times. It hasn't helped. Robert truly has forgotten me. Besides, I'm pregnant. How would I dare parade myself in front of him? If he recovered his memory and didn't want the baby, even tears like Meng Jiangnu's couldn't topple that wall. I refused at once. "No." I organized my words and then earnestly advised Assistant Wilson, "Assistant Wilson, your President Matthew explicitly told me not to appear before him. How can you defy his order for the sake of our shallow acquaintance? So please, don't mention me in front of Robert." After that day's checkup, I went home and, that very night, entrusted the house to an agent to sell. It's not the likely case that scares you, it's the 1 in 10,000. Running into amnesiac Robert during a checkup was one thing. But being spotted by a fully informed Assistant Wilson, that was huge. If he discovered I was pregnant, 9 times out of 10 he'd report it to Robert. Robert didn't like children before the amnesia. He'd like them even less after. Then for me and the baby, the danger level would be 99.9%. The capital is where I grew up, I can't bear to leave. So the only option is to move somewhere far from Robert. And switch hospitals, too. This time, I absolutely won't run into him again. 3rd prenatal checkup. Meow, ran into Robert yet again. Outpatient lobby. He was in a bespoke suit, planted at the passage entrance like he was here for a 100 billion project meeting. Earlier, his hair had been shaved for the injury, now it had grown to his ears, and his whole image had nearly recovered to pre-accident form. Only his aura was colder than before, like millennial snow, 10,000-year ice. His eyes were as opaque as a deep pool, locked tight on me. I stood not far from him, too spooked to walk forward. Inwardly bemoaning my bad luck, I began to consider just running abroad. Overseas, even if he remembered everything, he wouldn't find me so easily. The more I thought, the more feasible it seemed. Leaving home would be hard, but for the baby it would be worth it. If I really wanted to return, I could wait until the baby was older. Once I'd thought it through, I finally breathed out. When I looked at Robert again, I wasn't as afraid. I even lifted my head and gave him a smile. He drew a deep breath and strode toward me. After so many chance encounters, it was the first time he spoke to me. A man who won't accompany his wife to her checkups isn't worth keeping. But a child shouldn't lack a father's presence. I mean, I fell in love with you at first sight. May I be so bold as to ask, can I be your child's father? I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. Robert lowered his gaze. For all his coolness, there was a touch of shyness. "Miss Sarah Clark, I don't mind that the child in your belly isn't mine. I'll treat him well." I was silent. I stared, dumbfounded. My feelings were complicated. Because Robert's sudden bout of craziness. Didn't he say he didn't like children? So he's keen on being a ready-made dad, just not to his own child? Ha, ha, ha. I rolled my eyes at him 108 times and sneered, "My child already has a father. Why would I need you?" Robert's face darkened for a second. Then, all at once, he steadied. With firm conviction, he said, "A man who won't even accompany you to your checkups, can he be a good father? If he can't, can you?" "I can." "I don't believe you. Transfer me 500,000 and let's see your capability." Robert lowered his head. Robert transferred the money. Then he looked up at me, gaze suddenly tender. "I have plenty of money. I'm really suited to be your husband, and the father of the child you're carrying." In stunned silence, I stared at my phone. My bank balance had gone up by 1 million. At some point, Assistant Wilson had arrived, his mouth slightly agape, making a puzzled hissing sound. He gave us both a look that said far too much. "May I ask, what kind of play are you two doing?" "Me? I'm not playing. Your boss's morals have collapsed. He insists on being my homewrecker. 3 checkups, 3 different hospitals, and I still ran into Robert every time. With coincidences piling this high, I gave up resisting. I agreed to go home with Robert. And give him a chance to be the other man." "Hands on the wheel," Assistant Wilson asked as he started the car, going back to Blue Bay. I answered, "Of course, yes." Robert rejected it like a man possessed. "No." I gave him a sidelong, weightless glance. "Why not? Got another woman hidden there?" Robert froze a second, then fell silent. After a long moment, he stammered, "Probably, not anymore." Probably not anymore. Listen to yourself. Is that something a person says? Robert's voice grew smaller and smaller. I had a car accident a while ago and lost a stretch of memory. According to Assistant Wilson, I used to have a girlfriend, but I can't remember her at all. I swear I don't feel anything for her, and I've already sent her away. The one I love now is you. From the moment I first saw you, I felt we should be together. Oh, so you feel nothing for me now? Expressionless, I listened to his vows of devotion. Beside us, the highly educated, highly intelligent Assistant Wilson was stunned. He snuck a glance at me and then desperately signaled Robert with his eyes. "You'll definitely remember her." Robert's brain short-circuited and missed the cue. He declared, resolute, "I can't." Then, to me, deep, devoted, "It's you I like. I don't care that you've been married, and I don't care you're carrying another man's child. I want to marry you. By the way, when are you finalizing your divorce from your ex-husband?" Under his hands, the car carved an S-curve down the road. I glared at Robert with a cold smile, gritting out, "That depends on your performance. Can't remember me, yet still wants to be my homewrecker. Robert, you've really outdone yourself." Once we reached the villa, I messaged Assistant Wilson in private. Told him to act like he didn't know me. And not to reveal that I'd been Robert's canary. Casting a pitying look at Robert, Assistant Wilson nodded and, sweating bullets, slipped away. I sauntered into the villa. Aunt Eva, trimming flowers in the yard, spotted me and ran over happily. Peeking at Robert's face, she lowered her voice to a whisper, "Miss Clark, have you and President Matthew made up?" I nodded and also whispered, "Yes, but he had a car accident and his memories are scrambled. He thinks I'm someone else's wife, so if we do anything strange, don't take it seriously, we're just playing." Aunt Eva's eyes lit with comprehension. She was quick on the uptake. "Oh, is it that thing young people like to play now, the, what is it, play, right?" I smiled and nodded. Aunt Eva is so clever. Glancing back at the clueless Robert, I smiled with the softest hint of malice. I went straight to the upstairs bedroom and changed into a nightdress. When I stepped out, Robert was standing at the door. He looked up at me, his eyes brightened for a heartbeat. "That dress looks great." The clothes I had sent over arrived surprisingly fast. I pinched the hem and spun, smiling, "This was your former canary's dress, of course it looks good." Robert's already cold face froze entirely. "Huh?" My gaze turned frosty in an instant, reluctant to let me wear it. He shook his head quickly. "No." I rose on my toes and kissed his lips. Following his eyes, I smiled, all sweetness. "Good. Aren't you trying to move up and be my husband? Why so reserved now?" Robert's ears flushed red, he turned his head, lashes trembling. Then we should wait until you're divorced." My slender fingers tapped his Adam's apple, a light, teasing point. "You've heard, haven't you, that pregnant women have stronger needs? If you can't manage, I'll go back to my old Jones." I hadn't even finished. When Robert, eyes dark as night, scooped me up and carried me into the bedroom, laying me on the cool, smooth silk quilt. He bent to kiss me. In his gaze were hunger, guilt, and struggle, but never once did he stop. I'd only meant to tease him a little. But pregnancy makes hormones flare far too easily. Kissed into a haze, I forgot to refuse. He was mindful of my belly and wasn't rough. But he was slow and lingering, leaving me hanging. Blushing, I begged him to go faster. He kissed my fingertips, coaxing, "Who are you asking, right now?" I couldn't stand the dawdling and smacked him hard. His pace quickened, his eyes reddened. Why won't you say it? Huss, banned? Robert paused, then bit my finger with mock ferocity. Don't you dare think of him right now, you two are getting divorced. Amnesiac Robert burned as hot as a meme in Ellie's borrowed dress. I shut my eyes, laughing myself to death even as I was happy. The next day, I woke a bit late. Getting up, I found Robert tiptoeing around, directing people to move the clothes and accessories out of my dressing room. I frowned and glared at him. What are you doing with my things? Face like an iceberg, Robert answered, absolutely righteous, clearing space for the clothes and bags you like. And all this lace decor, I'll have it all removed in a bit, you can redecorate however you want. As for that patch of sunflowers in the garden, we can dig it up and leave room for you to plant your favorite flowers. My anger spiraled straight to the heavens. I could have exploded Robert on the spot. These were all things I loved, arranged with great care. Post-amnesia, for the sake of a woman he'd only seen a few times, he wanted it all gone. When anger peaks, you really can laugh. How could that be? Aren't these your favorite decorations? Robert blurted without thinking, no, I don't Lee. My gaze turned dangerous at once. Oh, so it was your former canary who liked them. For all his high-cold exterior, Robert could read a room a little. He shook his head in a hurry. No, 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 they're what I like. That was exactly what I was waiting for. I fished a black suit trimmed with lace from the dressing room and tossed it to Robert. Darling, I knew you liked it. Hurry and change for work. No, I should wear something more formal for work. A black suit with lace trim, what could be more formal? Face still cold, Robert slowly took the suit. Back when I decorated the villa, Robert was perpetually displeased. I nearly broke my back that night to keep those lace trims. Now, with amnesia, his subconscious thinks the person has changed. So he wants it all torn out immediately. In your dreams. Even if the decorations go, you're going to wear that lace trim suit for me. At the dining table, I slowly savored the nourishing porridge Aunt Eva had made. Robert tugged uneasily at the lace edging on his sleeve. Keeping a stern face, he asked in a tiny voice, do I really have to wear it? I swallowed my porridge and drawled, you don't have to. I was going to talk to old Jones today about the divorce, but now I'm in a bad mood, maybe I shouldn't go. No, I'll wear it, and I'll go with you to talk about the divorce. With his promotion on the line, Robert instantly released the lace he'd been pinching. I gave him a sidelong glance and scolded, go to what? Strutting around like a brazen homewrecker, do you have any morals? In a blink, the mighty snow lion shrank into a quail, his momentum collapsed. He still tried to sound justified, I just met you a little late. How is that my fault? If it's not your fault, is it my old Jones's? I can't stand Robert posing as a lofty flower while spouting morally bankrupt lines, so I jabbed and prodded, maybe, give him more money. I widened my eyes and cleared my throat lightly. Yes, we should give him more. My old Jones really loves me. That afternoon, old Jones himself, received a massive transfer from Assistant Wilson. Assistant Wilson called me, his tone faintly tragic, Miss Clark, you're demanding so much from President Matthew. If he regains his memory, he won't be angry with you, but I'll be done for. If he gets mad and fires you, just pack up the dirt from this period and sell it to his rival company. In an instant, Assistant Wilson perked up, great idea. I added another layer of insurance for him, besides, this is just a certain kind of play between me and your President Matthew, it has nothing to do with you as his assistant. It's best to keep Assistant Wilson settled. No sooner had Robert left the office than I got a message. In the cafe, I hurriedly ordered another cup of coffee. Before long, a familiar figure crept into a corner. No wonder he'd hemmed and hawed about the meeting address before leaving. Seeing him go to work that morning, I'd thought he wouldn't come. Luckily, the actor I'd hired as Old Jones arrived too. Old Jones had great chops, he thumped his chest and stamped his feet. Where is that vixen? How dare he seduce you to the point you want a divorce? The vixen himself sat behind Old Jones, face solemn, wanting to hear the reasons. He's handsome and rich. Behind Old Jones, Robert's face lit with a smile. I couldn't stand that smug look. So I switched the script, grabbed Old Jones by the sleeve, and ad-libbed, husband, I still have feelings for you. How about I steal his money to support you? Old Jones's improvisation was excellent. He smiled at once and said, sure. Catching sight, out of the corner of my eye, of a certain lofty flower behind him with eyes suddenly rimmed red, I smiled too. I didn't run simply because I was afraid Robert would make me get rid of the baby. Even if I insisted on having the child, he wouldn't actually do anything to me. The real reason I left was that Robert didn't love me enough. I met Robert at a bad time. My father's business had failed, he owed a huge sum. Then he was diagnosed with a terminal illness and passed away not long after. That left me hounded by creditors and employees demanding back pay. I sold every property and piece of jewelry, and I still came up 8 million short. And Robert was the creditor for that 8 million. Finding work out there was brutally hard. 5 to 6 thousand a month was normal, 2 to 3 thousand was abnormally low. All I could find sat right between normal and abnormal, 4,000. On 4,000, I could barely keep myself alive. With no way out, I gathered my courage and asked Robert if he could give me a job. I'd repay the debt with my wages, he'd only need to give me a little living allowance each month. I still remember the way Robert glanced at me, coldly, like he almost laughed from anger. He pointed at Assistant Wilson and said, "He has a master's in finance from the University of Chicago. He serves as my assistant. His annual salary is 2 million. Assuming you had his credentials, you could probably pay off the debt within 5 years. In that case, I wouldn't mind giving you a job. May I ask, Miss Sarah Clark, what are your credentials?" With my state university degree in digital media arts, I quietly shattered. Robert gave a cold snort and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. But that night, Assistant Wilson notified me to report to the group the next day. Robert had given me a job in the president's office as an assistant. Salary, 8,000, with 5,000 docked each month toward the debt. I pressed the calculator. At that rate, I'd have to work for Robert for 16,000 months. Converted into years, that's 1,333.3 years. Not much, what, 33 or 34 lifetimes. That night, buried under my blanket, I had a good, cathartic cry for the second half of my life I'd just lost. The next day, I briskly reported to Robert's company. And began my work to pay back debt days. Robert and I started as nothing more than boss and employee. I toiled for him with trepidation. He issued strict, terse orders. But before 3 months were up, 2 spiked drinks did us both in. Our relationship stopped being pure. That day, he had Assistant Wilson arrange a residence for me. And I obediently handed in my resignation. So later, no matter how good Robert was to me, I could never be sure he loved me. I fell in love with Robert, so I fretted and feared. I do like lace decor, but not so much that I want it in every corner. What I liked was Robert's indulgence, how he'd frown, yet still let me have my way. He never denied being good to me. I was sure I had a place in his heart. But the unequal footing between us was always a thorn stuck in my throat. When he said he didn't like children, I panicked. I was afraid. Afraid he'd stop liking me because I wanted a child. That was why, after he lost his memory, I was determined to leave. It just never crossed my mind that his morals would sink so low. To fall for me when, in his eyes, I was a married woman. The good news was, I no longer had to worry he didn't like kids. The bad news was, I now doubted his character. Morally compromised Robert didn't come home after work. According to Assistant Wilson, he was working late. Strangely, though, the office kept sounding like a kettle boiling. I've always known Robert as a bit of a poser. All icy mountain in public, a secret crybaby in private. Even with me, he puts on airs. When something upsets him, he usually waits until I fall asleep, then sneaks an arm around me and cries quietly. Crying outside like this was a first. I felt a twinge of guilt. Maybe I'd pushed the act too far. Sigh. Fine, give it a couple of days, then I'll tell him the truth. Around 1 a.m. when I was dozing, Robert came home. He'd washed up outside before coming into the room. He got in bed, wrapped an arm around my waist, and started to cry. Woo, woo, do you still love him? So what if I met you a little later, how can you love him? Woo, and you're using my money to support him. No. I don't care if you support him, but you can't love him. And the baby in your belly, he can only have me as his dad. The more he cried, the more ridiculous it got. I rolled over and slapped him. A signal to cry more quietly, he was keeping me up. Instead, he cupped my hand and kissed it, choking out, "Wife, smells so good." Then he stopped crying. And started getting weird. Feeling those damp, clinging fingers, I was like, forget it, better to let him keep crying. Life at Blue Bay settled into a prenatal routine. Sometimes I scrolled handsome guy videos. Sometimes I teased Robert. Days were happy and bright. Until one day, on a whim, I dug out the gifts Robert had given me. I found a small jewelry box with a diamond ring inside. Silver white band, a brilliant stone. The design was simple, just my taste. Hands trembling, I slid it onto my ring finger. A perfect fit, as if it were made for me. I held the ring up to the light for a closer look. There was a tiny line engraved on the rim, RM Love SC. SC are my initials, Sarah Clark. So, was this an engagement ring for me? Clutching the little box, I ran downstairs to ask Aunt Eva, who was cooking. Aunt Eva, when did this box end up in my gifts room? Busy with the soup, she spared a glance. The day you left, I found that box under the wardrobe. Thinking it was a gift from President Matthew, I just popped it into the gifts room. My throat went dry, my heart hammered. I immediately called Assistant Wilson. Before the car accident, was Robert planning to propose to me? When he confirmed it, I couldn't help laughing and crying at once. We'd been this close to getting married. Listening to my racket, Assistant Wilson was quiet for a moment, then said, President Matthew also knew you liked children. While keeping up his fitness, he consulted a doctor about fertility. Before he lost his memory, his future plans always included you. He added, after the accident he did order you to leave the capital. But since he'd been about to propose, I took it upon myself to tell you only to leave Blue Bay. Please don't doubt President Matthew's love for you. Even with his memories gone, he's fallen for you again, despite believing you're a married woman. When the call ended, I sat stunned for a long time. Very happy, and a little sad. Robert had never been bothered by my capriciousness. But I hadn't dared to trust him. If love is 100 steps, I was always one step short of him. I texted Robert to come home early that night. He misunderstood. I waited until I fell asleep, he still hadn't come back. Until later that night, when his crying woke me again. Woo, wife, is it because you don't want to use my money to support old Jones anymore that you told me to come home early, to talk break up? I don't want to break up. I can't live without you. When I saw you at the hospital, I felt so safe, so safe. I want to be with you forever. Woo, wifey, I don't want to leave you. I stroked his tear-wet cheek and soothed him, we won't separate. We'll be together forever. Robert's crying hitched. He looked up and scrubbed at his eyes. In a heartbeat, he switched to cool guy mode, no more old Jones. His voice still caught, though. I nodded and said softly, there's no old Jones. I only have you. I hugged him and told him our story. Even showed him our photos together. Robert stared at me, half believing, really? Really? If you don't believe me, ask Assistant Wilson. Robert nodded, okay. That night, we fell asleep in each other's arms. The next day, Assistant Wilson called me. President Matthew asked if the canary he kept before was you. I said yes. But he didn't seem to believe it, he gave me a strange look. What on earth did you tell him last night? I told him the truth, of course. What didn't Robert believe? Soon enough, I understood Robert's thought process. Under a burner account, he posted on a certain site. Title, My wife and my assistant are colluding to deceive me, should I expose them? I'll confess first, I am guilty. I fell in love with a pregnant, married woman and even made her my wife. But that's not the point. The point is, my wife changed her story. Now she says she was my former canary, I lost a stretch of memory in a car accident, my assistant says I kept a canary back then, and that the child in her belly is mine. She even photoshopped a bunch of lovey-dovey photos, tons of heart poses I would never make. She told me, if I don't believe her, to ask my assistant. This morning, I did. His story matched hers. Clickbait title, I don't intend to expose them, nor will I dig further. I just want to know what I can do to make my wife believe that I believe her. Because the post was so bizarre, the comments were full of scolding. I laughed in sheer exasperation as I read. So much for last night's guilt, what was I thinking, spouting the truth? Fine. I'll just keep being his other woman. That evening, Robert came home. As he walked in, I pulled a long face and said, when my old Jones comes in, he always steps with his left foot first, unlike certain people who lead with the right. He kept his face cold and simply looked at me. I went full yin-yang voice, my old Jones smiles so sweetly, unlike certain people who wear a permanent scowl, so annoying. Robert tried to lift the corners of his lips, but the smile was painfully stiff. I rolled my eyes again and kept at it, and my old Jones smiles beautifully, unlike someone whose smile looks like he's about to cry. Snap, the lights went out. Cutting off my planned barrage, Robert went a little mad and crushed his mouth to mine. Don't mention old Jones. You're not allowed to, not allowed, I hate him. I didn't manage a single word beyond a few muffled hums. Robert was truly furious. So much for his cool guy image. Crying and doing at the same time. I almost wanted to cry, too. From satisfaction. That's the price of not believing me. The next day, I dragged Robert to get our marriage certificate. 5 months later, I safely gave birth to a child. A year after that, the baby started talking. I secretly overheard Robert whispering to our child, "Baby, I'm your biological father. If you ever hear gossip, don't you dare believe it." I elbowed him, furious. Heavens, when will he ever get his memory back? When our child turned 3, one night I accidentally mentioned that old Jones had long since become a best actor. Robert exploded. He raged all night before calming down. When I woke, he was leaning against the headboard, staring at me without blinking. Sleepy, I leaned up to kiss his cheek and grumbled on instinct, "Old Jones is a film emperor now, what's wrong with me watching 2 episodes of his show? Why so jealous?" Besides, I have nothing to do with him. The next second, Robert clapped a hand over my mouth, flustered and annoyed. I know. Don't say it. On an ordinary day, I'd have to reassure him repeatedly before he'd let it go. He was acting off today. My eyes flew open, and there he was, face flushed, lips pressed tight. A guess flashed through me. Did your memory come back? Robert shot me an indignant glare. Me, ha 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 ha, so it did. I flipped over, wrapped my arms around his waist, and smiled, eyes crinkling. May I be so bold as to ask, can I be your child's father? Husband, does that line ring a bell? Robert turned his head away, fuming. He stared at the ceiling, the floor, anywhere but me. I turned my head too, tracking his gaze up and down, left and right, grinning like a little devil. Who said it, So hard to guess. Robert was about to puff up like a pufferfish. My laughter multiplied like 80 parrots, ha 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 ha. Too loud for Robert. Mortified and angry, he pounced, pinning me to the bed and nibbling like an unreasonable puppy. Sarah, you are not allowed to laugh. Outside, the sunlight was bright and ardent. Just like Robert's love for me.